We built a fake luxury store in Los Angeles and filled it with Payless shoes. The guests at our grand opening party had no idea.
They're elegant, sophisticated.
I just think it's so classy.
And I could tell it was made with high quality material.
These fashionistas actually paid $200, $400, and even $600 for Payless shoes. But you can get these same shoes at Payless for $19.99 or lower with our epic holiday deals. Why pay more when you can pay less?
Please excuse my voice, you guys. I got my wisdom teeth pulled not that long ago, so I do sound a little funny. I'm so sorry. Welcome back to my channel. This is the first time I'm using a mic actually versus just using my iPhone. And then I'm also practicing pretty much my makeup. I have 6 different foundation colors only because, you know, summertime, my skin tone fluctuates in the summertime, so I want to make sure I have the right color for an event that I'm going to. I'm actually going to be going to a fashion show, and I thought this would be the perfect time while I am testing out the foundations. I thought this would be the perfect time for me to do another what happened to video. So depending on when I drop this video, it may almost be about that time for kids to go back to school, or your kid has actually already gone back to school. And I pretty much want to talk about, you know, one of the stores I remember shopping with at a very young age. So currently some of you are going to go online, or you're either going to go in stores and you're going to buy shoes. And I just want to know, like, what stores did you actually shop with in the early 2000s? And do you remember how back in the day most people were shopping with
Jenny, toenail artist. Today's theme, happy feet. Think she's gonna want to hide those tootsies? I'm thinking she's thinking sandals. So where do I go to get us sandals and stay within my budget? Payless.
Please tell me this is a phase. Doesn't it feel good to pay less?
So growing up in Louisiana, it was a requirement for us to wear uniforms, whether you were in public or private school. We were able to pretty much express ourselves through jackets and shoes like most people. And honestly, if you had the wrong kicks, you were talked about. If you're someone like me that had siblings, your income was very limited, so you were either shopping at stores such as like Shoe Carnival, Academy, Foot Action, Foot Locker, if you can get multiple pairs there. I know I definitely could get multiple pairs there because my feet were very small. And then there was Payless for certain items. You definitely would be clowned if you walked in with certain shoes such as like Kids or Champions. Like, I know Champions is back in style now, but at that time nobody really was wearing them. But nevertheless, over the last couple of years, I haven't seen many Payless stores, nor have I heard much about them, and I honestly forgot about them until I reviewed Christian Siriano. That video is actually up. I just have it pretty much going to be pushed out at a certain date. I don't want to put too much of my videos out at one time. Check that video out when it's available. So today we will definitely discuss the rise of Payless, where they are now, and different information that we may or may not have known about Payless, so that we can try and figure out why we haven't really seen them for a good period of time. So really quickly, let's go back to 1956, where two cousins, Louis Possez and Charles Possez, desired to open a store with the emphasis on becoming one of the most successful shoewear brands, with the focus on affordability. And the idea of affordable shoes, but something that actually look great and has good quality is exactly what the masses were looking for. And that's exactly what the cousins produced as they opened Payless National in their hometown of Topeka, Kansas, and they kept their shoes under $3. Now, I don't know about y'all, if I could find some shoes that are like $3 right now, I would hop on it, especially if it was good quality. And everything seemed to be smooth sailing for the brand, as the cousins were able to actually open 3 other stores within the same year, but still within the Kansas state lines. After World War II, the world and trading was really opening up again. So we saw a boost in reproduction. You know, the baby boomers, and I believe the brand had an easier time of expanding and making their mark as there were a higher demand for more shoes, clothing, and things along those lines. And the cousins were able to take advantage of that opening in the market, pushing them to thrive even more within the next decade, where shoe styles began to change and Payless made sure they were on trend with the flat-toned shoes of the 1960s. Their sales rose to about 10 million, and Payless made the choice to expand into Texas, Nebraska, Oklahoma markets, and so forth. Payless was also able to do this through acquiring 50 plus smaller shoe stores within those states. All of these stores actually were under different names until 1962, when they decided to go with Volume Distributors as the brand name in an effort to go public and to strive for a more cohesive brand. I'll be honest, this was way before my time, so I'm not even sure I've ever heard of Volume Distributors. By the 1970s, Payless was prospering and they continued to expand and change their name again to Payless in 1978 as they adopted the popular logo that we all know today. And by 1979, May departments recognized Payless power. They chose to basically put in an offer and acquire the brand through stocks, with the company made about $75 million in sales. May department stores could also be seen stating that the acquisition was very successful up until about 1996, when they turned it back over to the shareholders. Now, their success in the 70s was due to choosing the proper store locations, which were basically within local city malls. And we can't forget about the popular 80 trends. During the era of May department, Payless continued to open more stores and introduce Payless Kids by the 90s, bringing the total stores to about 3,000 locations. They even went public in 1996. I honestly believe that this may have been where the brand started to expand a little too quickly, and you're going to understand really soon why I state that. While sales rose a bit, we began to see other problems where they had new competition. DSW, Shoe Carnival, Foot Locker, Target, and other stores that began to become very popular. So I feel like because they were becoming popular and they're taking away some of the income that Payless used to get, this is where, you know, maybe you see which stores aren't doing successful, scale back, perfected, etc. But instead of doing that, this is where Payless decided to still expand a little aggressively. And we also seen in these other stores, you were able to get more name brand items, whereas at Payless, they had their own brands. So, you know, if you're a kid, kind of like the kids when I was growing up, you would definitely get talked about. So if you didn't have the name brand items, so if you showed up with that, I'm pretty sure you'd be like, Mom, please don't buy me these shoes, da 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 da. Mainly because you didn't want to be that kid that was caught in some of the Payless branded items, only because of the type of appeal that it had on the younger group of kids. Another problem that became apparent were the operational costs within the brand. Something that was still a problem nearly a decade later. Within the late 90s, they did acquire Parade Shoes, but due to it being a separate sector, I won't go too far into detail about them. At the turn of the century, Payless saw that the impact of e-commerce would have, so they established their online presence. And to get ahead of getting their name out there and sort of pivot in a different direction due to the competition that they had in the 90s, Payless sought to expand outside of the country for the first time, establishing partnerships with Central and South America as well as Africa. Now, I couldn't find details on the companies they partnered with, but I did find that when they did plan to expand into Japan, they partnered with Nichum Corporation and did a little setup type of shop just to test that market. Remember, I spoke about the increasing market, the competitions in the 90s. Well, those brand along with others started to have a greater share around the early 2000s. And with Payless being stretched so thin, they had to pretty much close 104 underperforming stores. And they also had to cut 230 positions. The brand continued to take a dive each year. And with the numbers not being so great, by 2004, the president Cantrell resigned and they tried to rebrand with an updated logo just to turn things around. They also had their 2008 collaboration with Christian Siriano. I'm not going to go too far into detail on that one. I did cover that a little bit in the last video. But as Elle stated, like many others, they were excited for the collab. Siriano brought some inexpensive black platform boots and transformed them into something more fabulous that felt very luxe, with a few feathers and glue guns. So there were many other sources and outlets that stated the same thing. So it was a lot of people that was expecting Siriano to truly turn the brand around. And it wasn't really much about like the kids section. It was more in the women's shoe department. And of course they still did back to school sales and stuff for kids. But as far as the women's department, they wanted new, fresher looks. So the first line actually did really well, which extended their collaboration into the following year to capture some of the same success. The shoes were more pricier, but still affordable. But nevertheless, Siriano's collaboration definitely was a success for Payless, and that actually helped with sales. But even his collaboration could not save the company. And we've seen that a lot with a lot of other brands in general. They'll do different collaborations, hoping that this will pull them out of, hot water. But rarely does that happen. Of course, the collaboration was a success. They had over 3 different collections, but even the greatness from the collaboration couldn't save them from their debt. The back-to-school technical errors that led to too much inventory, causing a loss of about $63 million in 2018. And their aggressive strategy to expand, it definitely did not benefit the brand at all. So it really wasn't a shock that Payless filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 2017 and again in 2019. The 2017 bankruptcy resulted in 400 stores being closed, and the Payless CEO at the time, Paul Jones, stating that this was a difficult time but necessary. Decisions driven by the continued challenges of the retail environment, which will only intensify. And this is sad, but as I was reading up on everything, it made me wonder, how could they have missed that? It is very difficult to manage 4,000 plus stores, and we have to keep in mind that they are monitoring more than just Payless stores. There's different sectors for Payless. Even with them closing stores, they plan to really just focus on the stores outside of the country. And I think this also resulted in the second bankruptcy, where now we rarely see any of the stores in the United States. So it's clear where they focus began to drift towards. It was revealed that by 2019, Payless had about $470 million in debt, and they plan to liquidate and close their remaining stores, with 16,000 employees losing their job. What could they have done differently? When I go to social media today, on Instagram, they have 333,000 followers. On Facebook, they have 1.4 million followers. And on Twitter, they have a little over 2,000 followers. Now, in 2020, it was announced that Payless was making a comeback with an updated name, basically just dropping the ending and just going by Payless, kind of like I've been talking about. Kind of what I've been saying the whole video. I haven't been saying Payless Shoe Source or so forth. So they're dropping that Shoe Source portion of the name, and they're only going with Payless from here on out. Opening a starter store in Florida, and possibly to open more within the next couple of years. Then I saw the name of the products they were planning to sell, and it made me feel like they may need to go back to the drawing board. Brands such as Airwalk, American Eagle, K-Swiss, Kylie and Kendall, and they plan to make us pay for shipping costs for our returns. I honestly don't know anyone that still wears half of those brands, so this is definitely not as effective strategy. But I can say that I will remember Payless for their nostalgia, and normally I believe anyone can make an effective comeback if your groundwork is given and you put the right strategies behind it with fresher, newer ideas. Payless will basically be the New Year's meme that everyone used to use, but it seems nothing has changed. Yeah, that meme, that New Year's thing that we used to see all the time, that we kind of done away with in 2020. Payless is already trying to expand way too quickly. They mentioned that they plan to open about 500 stores in the next 5 years. I guess it's safe to say that Payless didn't really learn from their past, and I honestly don't see an effective comeback. And that's rare because I really feel like anyone can truly make a comeback with the right groundwork. And I just think it's kind of sad that they're only going to be remembered for the nostalgia, you know, the back to school sales, the Christian Siriano collaboration, you know, who they were in the 80s and before that. I just hope that they truly stop, think, go back to the drawing board and try again so that they can make an effective comeback in our new market. Thank you all for tuning in, you guys. This video was a little difficult for me to make, only because like I stated earlier, I just got my wisdom teeth pulled. So it is hard for me to sit here and talk through this when I'm in pain. So hopefully my voice doesn't sound that annoying. But thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.